The central, painful paradox of the digital age is that the tools meant to simplify connection and life management often become the single greatest source of hidden embarrassment and psychological distress for older adults.
This really captures a feeling that so many of us experience, but almost nobody talks about, right? Have you ever felt that little knot in your stomach when you have to ask a younger family member for help with your phone? Or that flicker of embarrassment when you can't figure out some new app that everyone else seems to be using so easily? Well, that feeling, that hidden wound, it actually has a name: tech shame. It's that creeping sense that you're somehow failing or falling behind just because the world's technology never stops changing. But today, we're going to reframe that entire story, because this isn't about failure. It's about understanding a hidden psychological dynamic, and more importantly, it's about reclaiming your dignity. So let's start by aiming at the right target. The problem isn't the device in your hand, not at all. The real problem is the feeling in your gut. We're going to explore that feeling, that sense of shame, instead of any so-called failure with the technology itself. Because, once we understand the emotional root of the issue, the path to a solution becomes incredibly clear.
Let's get really specific about that feeling. It's that moment of hesitation before you ask for help, where you're kind of weighing the frustration of not knowing against the embarrassment of asking. It's bracing yourself for a subtle sigh, maybe a quick eye roll, or that slightly impatient tone that says, "Come on, we just went over this." That feeling of being a burden, of being seen as less capable than you are in every other single part of your life, that is the real wound. The frustration with the software, that's temporary. But the sting of embarrassment, that can last. And it builds up, making you less likely to ask for help next time, which creates this whole cycle of avoidance and anxiety. Today, we're going to take that cycle apart, piece by piece.
And this brings us to what might be the single most important idea in this entire explainer. The enemy here is not a lack of knowledge, and it is definitely not your age. The real enemy is the situation itself, and the invisible psychological traps it sets for all of us. You see, when you can see the trap, you can just calmly walk right around it. So let's turn on the lights and expose what's really going on in those difficult moments.
So why does it feel so uniquely awful? You can ask a mechanic about a weird noise in your car, or a contractor about a leaky faucet, and feel perfectly fine. But asking how to share a photo from your phone can feel so personal, so exposing. Well, the answer lies in two really powerful psychological forces that are almost always at play whether we realize it or not.
Okay, the first and most powerful force is something psychologists call a status threat. Just think about it. For your entire adult life, you've been a competent, capable person. You've managed careers, you've raised families, you've navigated complex decisions. For decades, you've been the person people come to for advice. And then, suddenly, in this one little area, that whole dynamic gets violently flipped upside down. You're put in the role of the dependent student, and the person helping you, often someone much younger, maybe even your own child, is suddenly the expert. That jarring shift feels like a direct threat to your hard-won status as a capable adult, and our brains are just wired to react with anxiety when that happens.
The second force, which usually works right alongside the first, is called stereotype threat. Our society is unfortunately full of lazy and unfair stereotypes about older adults and technology. The cliches link any little struggle with the device to this bigger, scarier story about cognitive decline. So when you ask for help, there's this little voice in the back of your head worrying, am I confirming their stereotype right now? Do they see me as old and out of touch? And that fear adds a huge layer of pressure to the simple act of learning something new. You're not just trying to figure out a password, you feel like you're fighting an entire cultural stereotype in your own living room.
And let's be honest, these feelings often get worse because of the very people trying to help us, even when they mean well. A loved one might start doing what we could call exasperated teaching. It's not that they're being mean, they're probably just busy or don't realize the impact. It's when they quickly grab the phone to just do it for you, which robs you of the chance to actually learn. It's the subtle sigh, the explanation that's just a little too fast. These small signals, even when they're totally unintentional, just pour fuel on the fire of status threat and stereotype threat, and they end up confirming your worst fears. Okay, this slide is so important because it gives us a brand new, more accurate script to use. Take a look at the left column. That's the internal story that shame tells us. I'm failing, I'm losing my edge, this is my problem. It's a story all about personal failure. But now, look at the column on the right.
This is the real story, and it's so much more powerful because it's the truth. You're not failing, you're just facing a status threat, which is a perfectly normal human reaction. You're not losing your edge, you're dealing with stereotype threat, a pressure that society puts on you. And most importantly, this is not a personal problem. It is a systemic, generational issue. Just shifting your inner monologue from the story on the left to the reality on the right is the first huge step towards taking your power back.
All right, so understanding the problem is liberating, but knowing how to solve it, that's everything. This brings us to the solution, a proactive strategy we're calling the controlled learning protocol. This isn't just a few tips, it's a whole new system. It's a structured method designed specifically to dismantle the situation that causes the shame in the first place, putting you firmly back in the driver's seat of your own learning.
So, if the situation is the problem, then the solution has to be to change the situation. It's that simple. Instead of waiting for a moment of high-stress frustration to just spontaneously ask for help, a moment where you already feel powerless, you're going to proactively create and control a new learning environment, one that's designed from the ground up on your terms.
The Controlled Learning Protocol, or CLP, is basically a method that turns a moment of potential shame into an act of dignified self-improvement. And it works because it systematically shuts down the status threat and the stereotype threat before they even get a chance to start. It repositions you. You are no longer the student begging the teacher. You become the manager directing a consultant. And that little shift in framing, it changes absolutely everything.
The whole protocol is built on 3 simple but really powerful pillars. First, you have the status protection mandate. Think of this as your shield. It's all about framing the interaction from the start to protect your standing as a capable adult. Second, there's the structured learning block. This is your framework. It's about defining the when and the how, so learning happens on your schedule. And third, the question curation protocol. This is your agenda. It's about defining exactly what you want to learn, which shows you're prepared and focused. Together, these 3 pillars create a fortress of dignity around the whole process.
So let's move on to the playbook itself. This is where the theory becomes reality. We're going to walk through the exact practical steps you can take to put the controlled learning protocol into action in your own life, maybe even starting today.
There are 4 key actions in this playbook. Number 1, institute a tech time schedule. 2, create a question curation list. 3, master the context setting script. And number 4, introduce a reverse mentoring exchange. Let's break down each one. First up, the tech time schedule. Now this sounds so simple, but it is a complete game changer. Instead of asking for help in a moment of panic, you get ahead of it. You set aside a specific formal time slot, say 30 minutes every Tuesday evening, just for tech help. This immediately gets rid of that feeling of being a burden. You're not interrupting someone's day. You're holding a scheduled meeting they've already agreed to. This puts you in total control of the when, which instantly shifts the dynamic from dependency to proactive management. And that leads us right to the context-setting script. Just listen to how powerful this language is. It's calm, professional, confident. The word consultant here is absolutely key. It frames your helper as a valued expert and you're engaging for a specific task, not a superior you're bothering. And the phrase, "I've made a list," shows that you're prepared and you respect their time. This script isn't just about asking for help, it's about setting the terms of the engagement. It communicates respect for them, and crucially, it demands respect for your learning process. It just neutralizes the status threat right from the get-go. And this brings us to the final piece of the playbook, reverse mentoring. This one is optional, but it is incredibly powerful. It's all about making sure the relationship stays on equal footing. Instead of a one-way street where you're always the one in need, you turn it into a two-way exchange. As you can see, a simple request for help can reinforce that power imbalance, but a reciprocal exchange balances everything out. You could say something like, "I'd love your expertise on this photo app. In return, I can show you my foolproof technique for perfect pie crust." Or I can share my tips on negotiating a car lease. You have a lifetime of skills and wisdom. Offering to share that balances the scales and makes the whole thing feel like a collaboration between peers. Okay, let's zoom out for a second and look at the big picture. Putting this protocol into practice isn't just about making it easier to use your tablet. This is about playing the long game for your cognitive health, your vitality, and your long-term independence. This is about so much more than technology. It's about how you choose to engage with the world.
I really want you to let this quote sink in. For way too long, the cultural story has been all twisted up. The struggle to learn something new has been seen as a sign of decline. But the truth is the exact opposite. The decision to learn, to engage with a challenge, to stay curious, and to seek out new knowledge, that is the ultimate sign of a sharp, engaged, and vital mind. It's a profound act of strength.
And here's the thing to remember. Every time you proactively schedule a tech time session, you're doing so much more than solving a tech problem. You are literally exercising your brain. You're building new neural pathways and maintaining neuroplasticity, which is just the brain's amazing ability to adapt and grow. And on top of that, by showing your structured, dignified approach to learning, you are actively dismantling those tired, ageist stereotypes for yourself and for everyone around you. You are showing the world that you're a lifelong learner and you are fully in command of your own growth.
So we've explored the hidden psychology behind tech shame, and we've laid out a clear, dignity-first playbook to overcome it. We know now that this isn't a personal failing, it's a situational challenge. And by controlling the situation, you reclaim your power. Now, it's time to take that first simple step forward.
Here's your challenge, and it's a gentle one with just 3 simple parts. First, sometime today, just identify your 3 most frustrating tech issues. Is it organizing photos, understanding a new social media feature, figuring out a setting on your phone? Second, write them down. But don't just write "help with photos." Write them as specific, numbered questions like you would for a consultant. For example, number 1, what's the best way to create an album for my vacation photos and share it? And finally, step 3, look at your calendar. Think of a helper and schedule your very first tech time session. Just putting it on the calendar, that's a huge victory right there.
Remember, the shame that you may have felt when asking for tech help is not a personal failing. It is a natural fear of losing competence in a situation that feels out of your control. The Controlled Learning Protocol, with its structured tech time and prepared questions, is designed to put you firmly back in control. It is a powerful insight that allows you to reclaim your dignity by transforming a moment of need into an act of structured, self-directed learning. By actively choosing to be the student, on your own terms, you are not just learning to use a device, you are sustaining your intellectual vitality, reinforcing your independence, and securing your place in an ever-changing digital world. Because preparation is the antidote to shame.